my jury experience, without anybody really talking about it, the jury began to get a sense of what was just in this. And you know, let's not find this guy guilty or not guilty based on the law. Let's find him guilty or not guilty based on whether we really think he should do the time.
Each week on At Issue, we show the probe report you've just seen to a group of citizens somewhere in the United States. What you're watching are the unrehearsed reactions of people in Tampa, Florida, to the probe report, Power to the Jury.
Lawyers were surprised because they didn't think we'd go this way at all. But after talking about it over a length of time, we realized that the guy had obviously broken the law, but he hadn't broken the law, we felt, in our hearts to the point of doing this longer sentence.
When it came to the decision, what we had with the law that they gave us, we had to make the decision according to that law, and I really was disappointed because I felt that justice was not served because the law did not fit the crime.
Okay, if you had been told at the point you got ready to go into that jury room that if you don't think the law fits in this case, you have the right to make the decision based on the fact that the law doesn't fit, do you think it would have impacted the difference, would have made a difference?
Yes, yes, I really do.
If someone's brought to trial and what the law says is one thing, but what you feel and you can convey to the jury, you know, in that room, if it's a bad law, then I think it's up to you, and you know it's a bad law, to express your opinion and state why, and then if the other people agree, then go from there. And then if they disagree, then they need to prove it to you.
Governments can make anything illegal, and that's the sad thing about other countries. And if you have juries that can reject the laws, and you have the ability to prevent the type of bizarre things that happen.
Let's take it one step further, backwards. How did we get into this position?
I almost think that it's because the judges do not feel that 12 ordinary people are capable of making more than a guilty or not guilty choice. I mean, throw that third one in and people will not be able to make a choice. And I think that maybe they just don't trust the jury system as they should, that ordinary people can decide whether someone's guilty, not guilty, or that the law does not apply in this case.
The law is made by, you know, biases, or is it really ethical? Or, you know, I don't think some of the legislators are very ethical, I guess.
Well, I can see how the jury idea here could be used as a tool in the legislative process. In other words, it's like giving feedback to these legislators about what people think about what's going on.
I think before any jury is elected to be a jury, they should see this. I'm serious. I really do.
I've never been in a jury, and I think it's great that I saw that because I learned a lot about it.
They actually put in a plug for our show there. Well, let's see how our panel of experts feels about this issue. Dr. Eugene Hickok is a professor at Dickinson College and a resident scholar at the Heritage Foundation. Larry Dodge is the founder of the Fully Informed Jury Amendment Organization. And our host and permanent panelist is the chairman of the National Endowment for Liberty, Ron Paul. Ron, do you agree with the research group that all jurors really ought to see that program?
It certainly sounds like a great idea to me. I think that's a good deal. And I'm going to do everything possible to get as many people to get introduced to this idea, and I'm delighted to have two experts here with whom I can discuss this with. You know, it wasn't too many years ago I was not very much aware of what jury nullification was all about. Matter of fact, I came across a book by Lysander Spooner, Trial by Jury, and I was really enlightened by this. And this fits very well into any individual, including myself, who at times feels very frustrated about big government. I mean, here we try to improve our government. We recently talked about reforming Congress and changing Congress, but what happens? 96, 98, 99% of them get reelected. So those who are unhappy and need something to do in order to change things, I mean, really, this idea, this concept really gives hope to a lot of people. It's a real eye-opener to a lot. It was an eye-opener to me, and I think it's going to be an eye-opener to a lot of people in the general public, not realizing that juries have rights and that they have a responsibility, not just to deal with that particular case, but also a very deep responsibility to judge our judges and to judge our lawmakers. And it's amazing now to me to realize that we went so many years and this was totally neglected. But Larry, I want to start by asking you a specific question. Those who disagree with us that think that this is too much power for the individual, too much responsibility for the jury, they say, oh, this is going to lead to nothing but chaos. They're going to revoke laws and we'll have anarchy. What's your answer to that concern?
I can't see any possibility of it, Ron. For the first century that we were a nation, it was routine for the court to instruct the jury that you were judges both of law and of fact. And we didn't have any anarchy or chaos then. As a matter of fact, we had the government under control of the people, which is the way it's supposed to be.
And government was a lot smaller, of course, at that particular time. It seems like they almost have to have these judges protecting the lawmakers, that they can't expose the jury to too much information in fear that they may rule in a different manner. Gene, as a teacher and professor and someone that's interested in constitutional law, is this an issue that's been of interest to you, and how do you see this fitting into our current events today?
Well, it's kind of a curious turn of events over the last 200 years. If you look at the start of the Republic, as was demonstrated in the piece before we started our discussion, it was very important to those who wrote the Constitution, and particularly to those who were opposed or worried about this new Constitution, that there be checks on government. Now, there were a couple of ways that the framers decided we could do that. One was a written Constitution, which had limited powers for the national government. Another was through a system of election and re-election, so that the citizens would always have the ability to decide who will make laws and to change those people if need be. But a very important part of it was the jury system. It was a fundamental way of ensuring two things. One, that the citizens, the average citizen, would participate in helping to frame laws and understand how laws operate in their communities. That's the idea of deciding law as well as fact. In addition, it was a way of keeping an eye on the application of the laws, of ensuring that the citizen was active in the daily implementation of public policy. Those things gradually have escaped us over the years. That's not to say that we don't have a pretty faithful and a pretty good democracy. I think it's relatively strong. But this important aspect of it is missing. And that's one of the reasons why the debate that we're having today is so important.
Would this help us in any way when it comes to administrative law? So much of our law now isn't even in the regular courts, so few of our cases actually end up in the jury. And, you know, you take the IRS and other agencies, we don't have a trial by jury. Will the movement that you're heading up, Larry, help us in that way, or is that something that would come later? How do we deal with the problems of the administrative law that we have?
Well, administrative law can, of course, be challenged in court, and sometimes effectively is. And in some cases, as in tax law, if you do something bad enough, you do get a jury, and then you can go ahead and make your case to the jury that the law is bad. At the present time, that is a problem. Wherever you don't have a jury, you have a problem in controlling the government. This harks back to the Navigation Acts, an early part of our nation's history. In fact, before we were a nation, the British decided that we were supposed to route all trade through England and pay duties and taxes on it. But colonial juries would routinely let sea captains go, quit them, for disobeying, the Navigation Act. So the British responded by inventing courts that didn't have juries, courts of admiralty, where they could go ahead and have trials that didn't have juries, because they very well realized that if the jury were able to make its decision, they would reject these laws. And so the same problem is here with us today, and it does need to be dealt with.
Yeah, I think the regulatory morass that we live in today and the need for administrative law cannot be dismissed easily. I mean, the fact is we have a far more complex world and a far more complex society than we did 200 years ago. On the other hand, that's also one of the major reasons you should argue for a stronger trial by jury system. Because in the end, it's a way of empowering citizens and a way of helping to make sure that most law isn't written by bureaucracy.
I guess we have plenty of that today, and if we don't do something soon, I don't know what's going to happen. I think we're going to be overrun by the bureaucracy, and we can't even attack this bureaucracy if we can't get the people to speak out. If they feel frustrated with the elective process, this obviously is an alternative method whereby they can put restraints on big government.
Ron, this is a good time for us to perhaps take a short break. Hold that thought, and we'll return with more